Welcome back to Stonehouse Homestead, where we're taking small steps towards self-sufficiency. One of the steps that you can take towards self-sufficiency is by doing repairs yourself. In this installment, we'll walk you through the steps I took to replace a faucet on a 100-year-old kitchen sink. Originally, when we purchased our house over 20 years ago, our kitchen had a lovely white, sparkly Formica countertop and wall coverings, outlined with those little chrome strips. Fast forward to today, and here I am removing the sink once more because the faucet is leaking with no means to repair it, and replacing it with a new one is going to be a challenge. You can see here the approximate height where the sink originally sat and how much higher it is once we added 3/4 inch plywood, mastic, and tiles. Also back then we had to deal with galvanized pipes which allowed a sturdier platform for the old faucets to connect to, but unfortunately it too had to go and we replaced it with CPVC feeder pipes. So now the sink sits approximately 1 inch higher, but it also makes it extremely tough to get it sit back into the countertop because there's less room underneath the upper cabinets. So I'll be making the opening in the countertop about 1/4 inch bigger, so to give me a little bit more wiggle room to install the sink, next to the wall. Because of the minerals in the water, corrosion had formed around the faucet stems to the point where it just wouldn't stop leaking even after replacing the washers. I soaked them in anti-scale solution and even sanded them a little bit, but there was too many areas where water could pass beyond the washers. Unfortunately, not many companies make these type of faucets, especially ones that look antique-like. So I was happy to find American Standard had a model that fit the requirements, plus it uses ceramic cartridges that act like high-tech washers. It's quite expensive, but you are left with a minimal choice and you get what you pay for. The challenge in this installation is there's about 1 inch space between the wall and the back side of the sink. Since I've had to add support to the feeder pipes, I don't have much room left to get everything tucked in. The final challenge is the sink weighs almost 100 pounds, and since it was caulked into place, I had to use a car jack to lift it out. This is how the placement of the sink originally worked out. The opening was just large enough for the sink to set down inside the countertop. As you can see, the sink now has been moved away, and thanks to Melissa's help, I was able to place it safely on the floor. With the sink removed, you're able to get a detailed look at the antique wallpaper and the support cleat that held up the sink for about 100 years. The wallpaper is actually linoleum that was invented back in the 1860s. The manufacturer would produce a thick canvas cloth, print a pretty design on it, and then cover it with linseed resin. It was a very durable and waterproof way of protecting walls and floors in the 19th century. As you look down the wall behind the sink, you can see the history of the stains and paints other people applied and reapplied over the last 140 years. Here is the section of the countertop that I will be removing to give more room to shift the sink forward and backwards to accommodate the new faucet and supply lines. The section is about 1/4 of an inch, but it should do the trick. The only thing I'm concerned with is that there may not be enough room for the support and the supply lines both. Just to make sure that it is, I'll be removing this support cleat from the wall. I really hate that I have to do this because I know the next person who works on this old sink will get a kick out of finding it, but I have to do what I have to do. So now I've taken a jigsaw and cut out a 1/4 inch section from the countertop. It looks like it will still be strong enough to support the weight of the sink and the water, but it still gives me enough room that I need to place the sink back in. Okay, now I'm trying to remove the cleat as softly as possible because I don't want to take a huge chunk out of the plaster. I'm actually pretty amazed how easy it is coming off, seeing that it used to support the 120 pounds of weight of the sink and the water it contained. With everything removed, you can see how the original countertop was installed. Apparently they rested it on top of the wainscoting in the back and then built it out from there. Now here you can see the original horizontal support. You can see how they had to contour it to fit around the sink. On top of that, there is a 2x4 framework that I added to give the new countertop some strength. I then added the 3/4 inch pressurized plywood decking. Then on top of that, I coated it with mastic and then tiles. This was my very first tiling job, so I think I didn't do too badly. One of the ways you can be self-sufficient is by recycling and repurposing things, and here's a great 19th century example of it. If you look closely, it looks like whomever added the original countertop made it out of some old cabinet and then grafted around the sink and then into the wall. Well, here we have the back wall where the cleat was. Unfortunately, I couldn't save the antique linoleum, but now you can see the original green stain, and man, is it ever a dark color. I've marked out on the wall a level line and marks where the supply lines should go. I then transferred these lines to a 1/4 inch pressure treated board and then pre-drilled and pre-sunk the decking screws, which I'm going to use to mount it to the wall. With much effort, a broken pipe with water spraying all over the kitchen, a fender bender on the way back from the hardware store, here's how it turned out. The store no longer sells the same shut-off valve that they did 20 years ago, so that's why the one on the left is different. Now the next step is to lift that heavy sink and position it within the space. I've measured and I measured again, but it's hard to tell if everything will line up as it should. Even with that 1/4 inch taken out of the countertop, the support plate is not exactly flat and may make it tricky to settle the sink in. Fortunately, it does seem to be doing a good job at supporting the water lines though. Well, here is the sink back in place for testing, and you can see that the supply lines are not exactly in the center of the holes. I had to use wood strips to jimmy the sink around and to protect my fingers from being crushed between the sink and the countertop. Unfortunately, adding the 1/4 inch support in the back doesn't allow the sink to move completely back. There's still a 1/16 of an inch space between it and the wall. So here I am realigning the sink and getting it ready to permanently be set into the countertop. And here we are with the sink in place, the faucet installed, and everything cleaned up. It looks real nice now, doesn't it? I hope you enjoyed watching how I replaced the kitchen faucet without smashing my fingers and toes. If you found it helpful or entertaining, please click the like button, and if you want to make sure you don't miss another video in this series, please click on the subscribe button. Don't forget to share this video and then check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for watching.